Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of Podiatry Marketing. With me, as usual, is Jim McDannald, aka Big Jim Mac. How are you doing today, Jim?
Tyson, things are good. Things are good here in Quebec, in Montreal. Loving life. It's getting to the fall time now, so leaves are changing colors. We're heading towards winter, so I'm trying to hold on to fall for as long as possible.
Okay, so let's get on to today's topic.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about the 5 things to consider before getting started in your marketing. I think we've talked about in the past about when is somebody ready to start? Should they delegate it? Should they do it themselves? Those are all really important things to start as far as understanding how to execute it when you are ready. What are those kind of things that you should know yourself before you start doing your own marketing or hire somebody out? And that's what we're going to get in today because we want to make sure that people take careful consideration of really like foundational elements, some knowledge they can get before they start, because I think it's really pivotal to having marketing success is to have these kind of understand these things before you just dive in without a plan or without really the kind of the knowledge you need to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's really important because I have heard people say, "Oh, I need to market my podiatry business," and you're waiting for them to start asking more questions. And they go, "So I'm doing this," and you go, "Oh, why?
Right.
Why would you do that?" "Oh, because I saw another podiatrist do that somewhere else." I'm thinking, just because it worked for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So I think these questions that people need to ask themselves first before they dive into anything are really important.
I think it's hugely important because they have to have kind of a target and that understanding what the objective they're trying to go for, right? If they just try to copy paste what somebody else is doing without understanding kind of the why behind it, if things aren't working or they don't understand why something's not working, then it becomes even more frustrating because they don't understand why they were trying to do it in the first place. So that's a really important component, is to understand these foundational elements of your marketing before you just dive in there. So if things do get tough or things are working well, you can make sure that you're aiming at the right target. You're not just doing scattershot marketing, trying to achieve things that are meaningless to your business, right? If you get a million page views or a million likes or something, but it's not really driving the bottom line of your practice, was that a reasonable spend of budget? Hopefully, these 5 areas we talk about today lay down that foundation of why you're doing for what you're doing, with the marketing your practice.
So where do they start? What's number one?
Where we start is something that you and I touch on probably once every 2 or 3 episodes, to be honest. It's a very common theme that we keep coming back to. And that's really knowing who your ideal patients are, right? If you're wanting to go into sports medicine, it's not going to make a lot of sense for you to try to have a ton of information about diabetic foot wounds or doing massive reconstructive surgeries if you're really focused on more your weekend warrior or your high level athlete. Some athletes will need surgery. So I'm not trying to say you can't show that you're a surgeon, but you really have to know your ideal patient before you jump into your marketing. Because otherwise, like I say, if you're doing scattershot marketing, you're trying to be everything to everyone. It's really hard. So you really want to understand who your primary patients are. Like I said, are these athletes? Are these elderly individuals? Are you going after working professionals? Are you going after parents so you can see more kids, more pediatric patients? Just really understanding what are the needs of these people that you're trying to go after and understand kind of the behaviors that they engage in to make sure that you're having the right overall tone, you're creating the right kind of content, and you're being seen in those channels that are really going to help multiply your marketing efforts. That's really that kind of first step.
Yeah, because I have seen, I know of podiatrists who their clinic was really aimed at high risk people, but elderly high risk people, probably people 75 and over. That was majority of their market. And they were marketing on Instagram, I think it was. And I said to them, "Have you ever asked if any of your patients even look at Instagram?" "Oh, yeah, but I'm on there all the time." And I went, "Just ask them." And when they came, and when I spoke to them later, they weren't a coaching client, they were just someone that I knew. I spoke to them afterwards and went, "Do you know none of my patients are on Instagram?" I'm thinking, that's why you need to know who your audience is. You need to understand who your audience is before you do any marketing and they were spending a lot of time putting these videos together and clever captions, and they were just totally missing the mark.
That's a perfect example of kind of bad kind of pattern matching, right? Like finding where's that overlap of the right channel for the right patient. And
Mm.
maybe that is a local seniors newspaper or a local seniors magazine of some sort, if that's who you're going after. But it is one of those things where you have to take yourself back to the start and say, if I was, and it's not always easy, right? People are busy. It's sometimes, maybe it's easy to put yourself in the patient's shoes a little bit more when they're sitting in your practice. But when it comes to the marketing thing, you do have to think about, either have, maybe talk to your parents, maybe talk to, an older friend if you're going after that senior market, to understand where are they getting their information from,
Mm.
what things are generating awareness for them, because maybe you're out of touch. I like to give the examples that, like, every generation is disrupting the one older than them. For example, like, my parents are halfway decent at the internet, but
Yeah.
my grandparents, they it's a concept that they could never, during the last 20 or 30 years of their life, it's a concept that they could never fully grasp or incorporate into their life, right? So you have to understand what is normal for different generations or different demographics of patients, and then you're able to speak to them. Otherwise, you're either speaking past them, like your friend was doing the Instagram stuff. It's not that they were maybe giving bad messages, it's just nobody from that demographic was in that channel, right? So you have to find that, walk in the shoes of that patient or the patient persona, so that you can deliver the right message to them.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really important message that you said there about each generation disrupts the one before them. And I do. And I look at my mum, for example, she's in her late 70s, 79. And yeah, she's okay on her computer, but knows nothing really about, if anything went wrong, has no idea. I know exactly what I'm doing. But I think actually the generation behind us, well, I look at my daughter's generation and they're not good on computers either
They're all on phones, right?
because they're all on their phones. They do so much on their phone and maybe their iPad. The computer is really just a tool that she uses because she's at uni. If it wasn't for that, I don't think she'd ever pick up, and it's a bigger screen to watch Netflix on. They don't tend to use the computer the same way that you and I have used it over the last, say, 15, 20 years. So I think that generation is disrupting us because they're phones and iPads. So you need to understand that if that age group is who you want to talk to.
No, perfect example of your daughter. I think you have to know what those channels and how you can get in front of those people. And that's whether it be my parents or my grandparents' generation or your daughter's generation. I think those are good examples.
So you asked my daughter about Facebook. She goes, "That's for old people."
Yeah, it's where, like, people our age, like, stalk their high school classmates to see what they're doing. Yeah, I don't spend that much time on Facebook these days, except for the podiatry with business owners group.
Podiatry Business Owners Club. Yeah, that's a great mob
Yeah,
to be
that's the
part
best.
of.
That's the best place. That's where I spend most of my time.
But it's funny because somebody said once your parents are on something, it's no longer cool.
So you should get on TikTok ASAP, huh?
My daughter put Snapchat on my phone because it's the only way I can talk to her. If I send her a text message, she never responds. If I phone her, she doesn't pick up the phone. So she hooked up Snapchat. She says, "I only ever look at Snapchat." And I went, so she put it on my phone and it's true. I want to talk to her. I send a message through there or I send a photo of the dog and she always responds. If I send a photo of me, she responds 50-50. Send one of the dog doing something, just sleeping. Oh, how cute. Always respond. That's how her and all her friends communicate is through Snapchat.
There you go. It's crazy. Enough of the social media channels. We'll hop to
Yeah.
the next thing that you should know before getting started with your marketing, and that is understanding what your unique selling proposition is, or what expertise do you have that really sets you apart from other podiatrists. By determining what makes your clinic stand out from competitors, you're standing out, and that's a good thing because you don't want to be everything to everybody. You can
Yeah.
still do all the kind of procedures or take care of the problems that everyone does, but if you're going for a specific kind of patient demographic, you want to make sure that you seem like the best option. Is there, a specific kind of treatment method that you like to do a lot of, or a specific kind of maybe modality that you have in your practice that you think really is kind of state of the art and is steps ahead of other people in your local area? Maybe it's the type of care or the how quick you can get patients to be seen. In 24 hours, they can come to an appointment. Whatever makes you different, you really want to highlight that, not only on your website, but within your marketing. And knowing how you differentiate yourself from other people should be a conscious decision. It's something you can't find out as you practice, right? From day one, if you cold open a clinic right out of residency, maybe it's going to take you a little bit of time, maybe understanding what pays best. That's not probably how you should make all of your decisions. But obviously, if there are some financially rewarding aspects of podiatry that you really enjoy, making sure you're showing those things and being visible for
Mm.
those things and separating yourself from others is really hugely important, but it's really the cornerstone of your marketing message, right? You want to make sure that the message you're sending out to the public, what you're being seen for in the local community, really has to be compelling and clear. So when you understand what that kind of unique proposition or what your unique expertise is that you want to highlight is, it makes marketing your practice much easier.
Yeah, I've got a really cool Venn diagram of how to create your USP, which I will share next week
Awesome.
at the marketing workshop. It is a very cool diagram. Once you understand the diagram, it helps you understand, okay, this is my USP. I didn't realize that's what it was. And this might be what my competitors are. So it helps you then understand that and then understand what your patients want. So will all be revealed next week.
And we'll talk a little bit about what you just said there and a little lower in the top five. So we went through number one and number two, and number three is budget allocation,
Oh,
right?
that's a big one.
So a lot of, and I've talked about this a little bit in the past, but a lot of clinics, you see the cost of marketing. But really what you're trying to do is invest in the kind of local visibility, or maybe it's the national visibility of what the kind of services and care you're trying to provide. So
Mm.
hopefully you see that people will see that more as an investment, but you really have to define how much you're willing to spend and how you're willing to allocate that budget across different channels. And when you're first getting started, it may not, oh, I want a website. So I'll pay a few $1,000s to have a website and it'll just sit there. Or I'll pay $200 a month on Google Ads and that'll be enough. Or I'll do this one thing and I want my budget to be around $200 or $300 a month. So I think we talked in the past about where those kind of active budgets are, and it's going to be different for every practice, right? So I'm not saying that a person just into practice needs to spend thousands of dollars a month, but if you have a practice that's 5 or 6 podiatrists, you're trying to actively be the leader in your local area. If you're in a larger metro area, things are competitive. So understanding kind of what that looks like, you get what's the most bang for the buck as far as some of these channels that you select, and working with a marketing consultant or someone that does these services that can really help you identify those kind of high ROI channels and opportunities is really important, because whether you're focusing on digital advertising, maybe you're still utilizing some traditional media to get to your patient demographic, whether it's maybe you're working on some community events, you really got to have a clear budget will help you prioritize and measure your ROI, right? Because like we talked about, you have to have that kind of clear goal or objective to make sure that what you're spending with your marketing budget is getting that either those patients or that kind of desired effect, the desired result back to you, and finding a way to measure it's super important. So understanding where you're at in the spectrum of your practice, what you can afford, and what's out there already as far as what's a reasonable budget allocation is something that's really important to know what you're willing to do before you start marketing your practice.
Yeah, I used to look at our marketing budget very similar to our rent. That to me, rent is something you have to pay rent. If you're renting somewhere, unless you buy your own building. But when we were renting, rent was a monthly expense that was locked in for the next 5 years. That's just what was happening. I used to look at my marketing budget as the same. The only difference was my marketing budget was always a percentage of what our gross turnover was. And that was always the deal that had whatever our gross turnover was, I'd take a percentage of that and that would go towards marketing. And no matter what was happening, if all of a sudden there was a bit of a downturn in the economy and it, say, dropped a little bit, which didn't really happen. But if it did, then our marketing budget would have dropped proportionally, but it would have been the same percentage. The last thing I would have done if it had been quiet was cut my marketing out altogether. Biggest mistake, almost about to say like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. Big mistake, huge. Shouldn't do that. I make a lot of movie references every now and then, don't I?
Yeah, movies are fun. I like the movie references.
But that's the thing. I've seen so many people that the business is not in trouble, but it's taken a bit of a downturn for whatever reason. And the first thing they want to cut is their marketing. I'm going, that's the last thing you should be cutting, is look at other areas to cut your costs, maybe your own spending habits in general, but keep the marketing going. And that was something that I'd learned really early on. And it's something I did through my whole career. Every clinic I owned, percentage went towards marketing. It was always allocated. Didn't mean we always used it. It was just allocated. It was put into an area. That's what we're going to spend each month. Most of the times it was spent.
Yeah, you don't want to turn off the faucet, right?
Oh,
All
yeah.
things are going down, so they got to turn that off. Then you're getting rid of your visibility and awareness in your local community when you do that. So definitely, you got to find the right place to cut sometimes. But cutting that marketing can be difficult. It can be sometimes take a while to build back up after that as well. So just something to
Mm.
consider.
And
Um,
like you said, it helps you prioritize where you're going to put your money and what return you're going to get in the investment. So if I said to someone, if you spend 2,000, you get 10 grand back. If you spend four, you get 20 back. How much are you prepared to spend? If you know that every time you spend it, you're going to get, and that's why you need to know what your return on investment is in all the marketing that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Like I'd spend, if I knew, if I could spend 100 grand a month and it was going to give me back $1 million a month, it would be a no brainer.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
Yeah. So number
Number
four
four.
is knowing the competitive landscape. I think it's important that when you're starting your practice or you've been in practice for a while, that you study what other podiatry clinics or similar medical service providers are doing in terms of their marketing. This is
Mm,
not to mean that you're going to like copy paste exactly what they're doing, but you need to know who's running in what lane, right? So, like we talked about previously, who are the other people that are doing sports medicine in your local area? Who are the people that are doing catering to seniors? Who are the people that are doing pediatric foot and ankle things? So, this will help you identify the gaps in the market. If you go to a community and no one else is really pushing hard on treating runners, helping at local marathons, doing road race events, really stepping up in that area, that could be a huge opportunity if that's something you like to do. Identifying these gaps is really important. Also, it can really open up ideas for potential partnerships. These partnership opportunities with maybe there is a sports medicine clinic, or there is physios, or there is running shoe stores in your local area. So, really gaining these potential partnerships can really, like we talked about in the previous podcast with you, is that and make an exponential increase in your patient referrals because you are seen as that expert in running injuries because you are the one that's doing all these things. Really understanding the strategies that are either effective or ineffective in your local region, right? If you're in South Florida with a bunch of retirees and you're trying to advertise on Snapchat, probably when you're going after a senior market, probably not going to be very successful with that. But you want to make sure that you understand who is doing Facebook ads, who is doing Google ads, who has their website really looking like a nice place for seniors to go, a big phone number, or what are some of the gaps or who's not doing it right. Kind of understanding what the competitive landscape is. Sometimes when I work with my clients, we do a really thorough audit of not only your practice, but also understanding that maybe 3 to 5 other clinics in the local area, just so you can get a general sense of what they look like and who they're catering to. And depending on what local area you're in, maybe there's enough patients for everybody. And most of the time, it seems to be that way, unless you're in New York City or maybe San Francisco, where there's a 5 podiatrists on every block. There's usually enough patients to go around. But just knowing how you can show your expertise in a professional way that's helpful to your patients through this kind of understanding this competitive landscape can really be really beneficial.
yeah, I think what you said there is right. There's plenty of patients around for everybody, but the patients won't know to come to you if you're not putting the right information in front of them using the right channel.
Yep.
If you don't do that, then they're going to go to your competitors because they might be giving, you might be better at something than what they are, but if you're not telling people the right way, they'll never know about it.
Yeah, if you're not telling them the right way, you're not showing in a way that appeals to them, right? There's specific types of clientele likes to be talked to in a certain way or shown like trust signals, right? Or these like badges that you are an authority. For example, maybe if like when I was growing up and I had a foot problem, the kind of the badge that was most appealing to me as a young person, and maybe my parents thought it was interesting as well, is that when I had a running injury, I went to the doctor who took care of the 1980 and 1984 like Olympic gold medalist in the mile, right? So
Yeah.
right, actually in the 1500 meters. So was I ever going to be an Olympian? I ended up going to the Olympics, but not running in it. I worked in a different capacity. But it's that if this person works with them, or if this person has this level of trust or certification, then they must be the right person. So you have to understand where on that totem pole is. Are you moving into, for example, the Bay Area? There's basically the most well-known podiatrist in sports medicine and running is Amal Saxena, and he's in the Palo Alto, San Francisco area. And if you're trying to open up shop in Palo Alto next to Amal, you'll probably see some weekend warriors, but you're not going to get those Olympic level athletes because he is the guy that everybody
Yeah.
sees in that. And it's a pretty small community, professional runners, but not to say you can't do it, but just knowing the market demographics and what you're going after can really really inform you as far as how you put your your practice out there and how you market your practice in an efficient way?
Oh, I tell you, I'm writing notes down as you're talking because some of the things that you're saying, I'm just going, wow, that can be expanded upon. There's some, how ideas just go off in your head. Somebody will
For
say
sure.
something and all of a sudden you go, so I've got all these different ideas. Just when you're talking about that, like that podiatrist, for example, who's an Olympic athlete. So he has really defined who he is and people know who he is because he was at the Olympics. But there's no difference between him and say yourself, Jim, who, if you really define who you are and you let people know who you are, then people will flock to you as well.
Yeah, but you have to
Mm,
define that, right? You can't just
yeah,
imagine that it's gonna like people are gonna find out these things. You have to tell them.
yeah. But that podiatrist is fortunate that the world and the media has told everyone, hey, he's a podiatrist and he's set up here and he was at the Olympics. But straight away, if you're a runner, you're going to know that. But there's a lot of podiatrists out there who could really help Olympic type athletes. So therefore, they need to put it out there. That's what they can do
Yeah,
if
for
that's who
sure.
they want
But
to treat.
they gotta take that first step, right?
Okay, number 5, the last one.
Yeah, the fifth and final kind of thing to consider before getting started with the marketing is you got to really understand what the regulatory and take some ethical considerations when it comes to advertising and marketing. Obviously, we have an international podcast, and some of the things that I say when it comes to most likely testimonials and patient reviews don't
Yeah.
always apply to our friends down under, and so they got to take things with a grain of salt. Maybe some regulations will vary from in the United States from state to state, or in Canada from province to province, or I don't know if there's different parts of the UK where you can do certain things and not say certain things, but you really want to ensure that your marketing plans align with medical advertising regulations and that you're being ethical what you're doing, right? You
Mm,
don't want to oversell or fabricate results that you've gathered with patients. Obviously, that goes without saying, but I have to say it because you want to be honest and trustworthy. And that one person that is untrustworthy or does something nefarious doesn't only reflect on him and hurt his patients or her patients, but also reflects poorly on the entire profession in the US and in Australia and Canada and in the UK. So it's really important that whatever you're marketing or advertising is legitimate and you're holding yourself at a high ethical standard. You got to maintain patient confidentiality. So if you're able to show before and after or get patient testimonials, you want to make sure that you have releases and legal documentation to safeguard the patient's health information. If they're willing to hand that over and share the world about how great you are and it's legal and okay to do in your location, fantastic. But you always want to err on side of preserving patient confidentiality, not only for legal reasons, but for ethical reasons. Like I said, be truthful in your advertising claims. You don't want to promise the moon and get 2 feet off the ground. You have to like back up what you say. And then also, you just want to make sure these patient testimonials endorsements are genuine and that someone is willing to do it, right? You don't want to ever make a patient feel, whether it would be a review or a testimonial, that they have to do it or that feel pressured to do it because you're not, number one, you're not going to get a very good testimonial from someone like that or a review from someone like that. But also it just really damages the kind of patient physician relationship if the patient is not, open to it. And they'll tell you, like when you ask, you can either through the words they say or their body language, if you feel like they're super nervous or super timid about it, you can always say, "That's okay. I can tell that I can tell you're feeling a little bit nervous about me asking you this. Not a problem. You don't have to do it." So always err on the side of letting them get out of it. But that's really taking into consideration the legal and ethical considerations around marketing. And number one, if you're not doing the marketing yourself, you want to make sure that you align yourself with a consultant or an expert who has a track record of doing things that are the right way with the way they do their advertising, website, any kind of marketing collateral that's created by those people that you work with should be above board. So those are important things to consider when you're getting those kind of 5 things you should consider when you're getting started. And with all these considerations in mind, you're really able to develop a marketing plan that's not only effective, but it's, like I said, is respectful, is
mm.
professional, and it really reflects the values and standards of your clinic. So that's the spiel here, those top 5 things.
Yeah, just on that last one about, yeah, ethical considerations. Every registration board will usually have guidelines about ethics and marketing. Just read them, put some time aside, grab a drink, glass of wine or a beer, and just sit there and read them and understand them. And if you're going to do something and you're not sure, Because somebody once said to me, jokingly, you can say, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. That's one thing. But also, if you have to ask yourself whether you should or shouldn't do something, the answer is usually you shouldn't. Because if you've got to ask that question, then there's something in the back of your mind that's already telling you there could be a slight problem with it. So just always say, err on the side of caution. But if you still want to do it and you're not sure, look at the rules. If that's not really clear, it's a bit grey, ask your lawyer. Run it past your lawyer. Say, can I just get your opinion? I'm reading this rule. This is what I want to do. Am I breaking the rule? If they go, no, that wouldn't hold up because it's too vague, then you know that, okay. And that's sometimes a little voice in the back of your head where it's just a little bit of confusion. So just err on the side of caution because you don't want to get in trouble.
No, you want to maintain your reputation, right? You want to have your reputation precedes, it leads, it goes everywhere before you even get to places. Your name, the name of your clinic, you really want to maintain that because when you're taking care of people, especially, it's not like we're in this profession selling products and things break, blah, blah, blah. These are people's lives and this is people's livelihoods, right? They need their feet to be active, to live the lives they want to lead. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything and erring on the side of doing no harm is what we all swear to across the world to take care of people and their feet. So I think it's maintaining your reputation and doing things above board is the only way to go.
I think that is a perfect top 5 for this particular episode. Okay, bye.